Hi, and welcome to the Ideas Post at Raisina 2024. We have the pleasure of having Dr. Khalil Shirgolami, Vice President at the Institute for Political and International Studies in Iran. Welcome, sir. It's great to have you here. And I'll just dive into my first question for you today. This is an interesting time in West Asia, to say the least. And we are looking at a conflict happening between Israel and Hamas. We are also looking at a fallout of that conflict in the Red Sea. And for a lot of people, Iran is seen as an influential power in the region and influence on what is happening in the region right now. How do you look at the conflict going forward from in February 2024? It's been 4.5 months. And what is the Iranian view of the time that is coming and how this is going to shape up?
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you here today, and thanks for giving me this chance to talk to you. Our position and our policy towards the Palestinian issue is a very rule-based and norm-based, let's say, policy, based on the fact that what has happened in Palestine did not start from October 7th. It's rooted in the history, a history of more than 7 decades, while it is an ongoing history which not finished yet, due to the fact that it's the history of occupation and subjugation of the Palestinian people for more than 7 decades, and it's still going on. And the fact that what happened from October 7th, which some people would try to perceive it as a, let's say, a starting point for the Palestinian issue or for the conflict between Israel and Gaza, it's not the case. It's not true. And the fact that a nation under the occupation, under all international norms and regulations, they do have the right to defend themselves against occupation and to try to, let's say, to take their territory, their lands, as well as let's say, to have the self-determination. And this is not a conventional right that to be given to somebody. It's a very inherent right under international norms, international law. And that's the case with the Palestinian people. They are trying to get it for more than 7 decades. And there is a history of, let's say, brutal behavior toward Palestinians, in terms of getting their lands, in terms of getting their lives and everything. They do not have any rights. And even the policy of Israel, especially this far-right administration in Tel Aviv, has been to dehumanize these people. They don't even perceive them as a human being, to have any fundamental rights even. So that's the, let's say, root causes of the problem, and the fact that it's already 4 months past and more than 30,000 innocent people have been killed. And still there is any opportunity for a ceasefire that is the basics for any kind of, let's say, settlement.
Right.
And the fact that the innocent people are killing by daily basis, and they are under very serious situation. They need the humanitarian aids, and unfortunately, there is a polarization everywhere. The polarizations between many countries, many areas, even the polarization inside the countries. You can see what's happening in European countries. The society is polarized with regard to this issue. There is a very severe gap between the governments and the public opinion. So what's important and what we think is that, first of all, we need to consider and address the very root causes of the problem, and to try to give the Palestinian people their natural and inherent rights.
Right.
This is very important. With regard to, let's say what's happened in the Red Sea, the fact is that from the beginning of the invasion of Gaza by Israelis, we have just alerted that there is the possibility of a spillover of the crisis in the region, based on the fact that the nations in the region, the people in the region, they are, let's say, quite sensitive towards what's happening in Gaza. And there must be a stop in this stop for the Israelis' atrocities in Gaza. But unfortunately, there has been no chance for any ceasefire and stop of the war. And it was the very natural, let's say, reaction of parts of the people in the regions towards what's happening in Gaza. And the fact that the transitional government in Yemen, they are independent people. There are some misperceptions that Iran is giving order to them, or what they are doing is, let's say, by provocation by Iran. This is not the case. They are independent. They decide by themselves what to do or not to do. As it was the case by the October 7th also incident, the fact that the Hamas declared very explicitly and very transparent that nobody was aware of what we planned and what we did. So
I just want to very
that's the
quickly,
case.
I just want to very quickly, you mentioned the word ceasefire, for example. Saudi Arabia and Iran normalized their relations some time ago. And just to segue off that, is that normalization in a position right now to offer a solution, not solution, but maybe an off-ramp, as they call it, to the current sort of status quo that has been stuck for the past 4 months? Very quickly.
The fact that what's happened, the October 7th incident, after that the Israeli invasion of Gaza, does not having to do with Iran-Saudi relationship, but the fact that Iran-Saudi, they are both Islamic countries. They both emphasize the fact that there must be a very, let's say, fundamental solution for the Palestinian issue, and we are consolidating our positions vis-a-vis this crisis. So in that sense, Iran and Saudi Arabia, as two important players in the Middle East and in the West Asia, they can contribute positively to a better situation in the region.
Right, and I want to move to geoeconomics. Now, that is a term that we hear very often now. We are talking about trade corridors that are connecting multiple parts of the world. The sort of the new thinking about global order is very anchored around economics and geoeconomics, or seems to be at least. And now Iran is part of BRICS. How do you see, for example, how do you see Iran contributing to the cause of the BRICS, which is a at times contested grouping, that what can they achieve, especially after the expansion and so on? What is Iran's vision for their candidacy, for their membership of BRICS?
Need to emphasize that Iran and India both shares the same opinion with regard to the world order and the evolving world order. In the sense that there must be some reforms in the current international order, international system. The fact that many things have changed. The logic behind the international system, the players, and also the distribution of power has changed by every means. And Iran and India, they share the fact that we need to have a more plural as well as a more just international system. Based on that, the new voices are here, day by day increasing, and the global south is going to have a more important role in international system and in many trends in the world, and new coalitions based on that is shaping. So based on this logic, we believe that blocks like BRICS, they can have a very important contribution to evolving international system, so that many players can come and their voices be heard, and by this, let's say, new wave of integration between the regional powers, we can have a more pluralistic international system, and also it would be beneficial for many players, so that we will try to shape a more, let's say, diversified international system based on contribution, based on cooperative behavior, and it could be at the benefit of everybody.
But do you see, you mentioned Global South, do you see the Global South developing as something which can have a voice of unison together when we are talking about this newer sort of global order, or how this newer sort of thing? Do you see that cohesion within this idea of Global South from an Iranian perspective?
It's an ongoing trend. It still need to be consolidated. There are many elements. the point is that we can divide the current international players in three categories. The first category is the Western Bloc. They are for the status quo because of the fact that the current international world order is at their best benefit. Okay, that's the case. Two other different players are Russia and China. They are struggling for, let's say, having a bigger share in the current international system and order. And there are the global south, which say that there must be some reforms. We are not necessarily revisionist players, but we are thinking and we are talking about some sort of reforms in current international order based on considering and addressing the benefits of everybody. And based on a win-win game. So I think it's an ongoing trend, and through our, let's say, strengthening our ties and countries, I mean, those countries, including the members of BRICS, they can do many things together. So to try to make this process an institutionalized one and a coherent one as well.
And I think it's very interesting you use the word revisionist. That's very, very interesting. My final question to you is on Afghanistan, because that seems to be a forgotten case that what happened in 2021, and the Taliban is back in power in Kabul. There seems to be very little or very controlled interest in the West on what is happening. We saw the Doha meeting was supposed to be something which really didn't turn out to be what it was supposed to be. What are Iran's concerns about Afghanistan right now, especially on the security situation? And what kind of dialogue have or can India and Iran sort of have when it comes to a very unique situation that is there in Afghanistan right now?
Yeah, fortunately, we do share many ideas with India vis-a-vis Afghanistan, as you know. As you just mentioned, the situation in Afghanistan was overshadowed by the Ukraine crisis, and it was a forgotten crisis, unfortunately, while especially the humanitarian situation was not good at all, The fact that we share the idea with India that there must be an inclusive government in Afghanistan with the participation of all fronts and all groups of people and ethnicities. And based on that, while at the benefit of the Afghan people, we have been talking to Taliban government, we have been cooperating with them economically in terms of security, many other areas. We have been pushing that you must accept the will of the international community for an inclusive and comprehensive government. Based on that, we believe that the solution for Afghanistan is also need to be an indigenous solution coming from the region with the participation of the Afghan people. And based on that, Iran has initiated the regional contact group, which held the first meeting in Kabul some weeks ago. And we think that with the participation of the regional countries, including India, we can contribute very positively to the situation in Afghanistan. And our views on Afghanistan, Iran, India is really similar. And I hope that we can do many things together in Afghanistan for a better situation in terms of economy, security, counter-terrorism, and also for a very prosperous life of Afghan people in future.
Was very quickly before we wrap up, was the recent tension between Iran and Pakistan a result of the spillover of what is happening in Afghanistan, or is that something completely on the side?
Could be the case due to the fact that, unfortunately, for almost 5 decades, Afghanistan has been a source of insecurity, having the spillover of the insecurity all over the region, including our borders. And you know that Iran has suffered a lot. We are hosting over 6 million people of refugees from Afghanistan. And the fact that, this situation is a very volatile situation, making the borders also very shaky. So what happened between Iran and Pakistan was by some means, and let's say an implication of that situation. And if we try to have a stable Afghanistan with the cooperation of India, we can manage it very well together.
All right. Thank you so much for your time for
My
Ideas
pleasure.
Pod at Raisina, and I hope you have a great stay in Delhi during
My
your visit.
pleasure, and wish this very important initiative by ORF a total success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.